Welcome to this webinar series about BHC 21, Boosting Human Capital in the 21st Century. And this is an Interact 2 SEAS project which gathers the expertise of 12 partners from Belgium, France and the UK. And in this part, we will discuss the key findings of those partners in regards to the focus on mentors and trainers in this project. How did we guide and help them within BHC 21? We recruited young people. We added learning technologies into the training program. We not only focused on technical skills, but also on soft skills. And now I can feel my inner Remco Evenepoel. I can see the finish line, but there is still one hurdle that needs to be tackled, and that is, it's a change program. So how did you involve mentors and trainers, and how did you make sure, Tineke, that everyone was on the same track?
I think we got lucky with Bart, the instructor who was involved. It's someone who came out of industry into VDAB to train people. He was used to implement change himself, so he was very open. So I think it's very important, like I said before, to involve a trainer from the beginning, because that's the person who will be the ambassador if you need to transfer it to other trainers. That's what Bart does to this day. When he sees the other trainers together, he's like an ambassador for us to talk about the VR and the training program. So that's very important, and a very valuable lesson as well. Even if your trainer is very motivated, get him into the best conditions. Learning technologies means technology. It means something can go wrong. It means the Wi-Fi doesn't work. It means the computer is broken. It means, I don't know, it's stuck somewhere in between. It's very necessary to have an ear there with the trainer to evaluate, to go to him, does it work, doesn't it work, what doesn't work? Because otherwise, if you don't get them the best conditions, you have developed something, you have a very cool VR tool, and then he puts the VR tool into the closet, done. So if you have an ambassador, get him on board, and also, help him to have the best conditions and to keep on using it. I think that's very important.
Something could go wrong with technology. How about you, Mathieu?
So we faced the same question that Tineke talked about, so I won't come back on that. But in our case, the technical training was managed by Kevin Tiberi, which is a well-experienced trainer and very adaptable. So the question for us was not the training of trainers, but the training of mentors in the company. That was the key point for us, to try to redefine with them what could be their role. If you consider that introducing ILT is giving innovative learning technology, introducing this technology in the training process, it's changing the role of the mentor. Is maybe less demanded as technical support, but what other function could we define with him or her in order to avoid any kind of frustration? So it was part of the discussion during the train-the-trainer process in order to keep more attention of the mentor in monitoring young people's personal skills. In evaluating the skills, we worked with them to build a skills assessment grid in order to follow the development of the young people during the training in the companies. And I think it's a way to redefine a new interesting role of the mentor. Of course, they already did that, but maybe it was not so well structured and focused. And now, because of the new technology, they can maybe give some distance with the technique and put more attention to the people.
Okay. Final question for you, Alan. Was some kind of a train-the-trainer approach important in your transition in the UK?
Yes. It's really important that we could do all the work with the participants and put them out on work placements, but it's really important that the employers who were receiving those participants were sympathetic and had some understanding of the cohort of the people that we were recruiting, because some of them, as I said, would have had maybe difficulties with employment previously or even with learning. So they needed to be sympathetic. So we needed to do some work to prepare the ground with employers, and that was very important. University of Greenwich did this work and actually have a lot of experience in teaching that kind of pedagogy, if you like. So that was to try to get that across to the engineers that were receiving these young people. The other thing was we wanted them to understand the learning technologies we were using. So the University of Greenwich ran a couple of sort of twilight evening sessions where they had demonstration equipment, so the VR, but lots of other things as well, 7 or 8 different kinds of technology you could use. So that was helpful. I would mention that there was a real challenge with this. It was probably the biggest challenge of the programme, because you will remember this. We ran this programme during the whole time of COVID. So trying to get employer engagement was difficult. Trying to get employers to send staff out for training was hard, because they were all trying to get their order books up and recover. So it was a challenging time. So we had to make sure that the time we used was really used effectively. So we had to really be careful that if we had employers who would come out for a day to do training, that we used that time really well. So that was very important. So, but it was a challenge, but it was a valuable and important part of the programme. You must prepare the ground, because otherwise it wouldn't work. So yes, it's very important.
Okay, so we covered all 4 bases. So thank you, Alan, Tineke, Mathieu, for hitting this home run. But now it's up to you at home to ask them some questions. Of course, they're allowed to have a drink, and you're allowed to think about the most difficult questions that you might have. Also, the people in here live in Lille can ask us some questions. And while you type in your question in the chat, we could have a look at a little movie about the decision tool that Tineke was talking about. So please type in your questions, sit back, relax, and watch the decision tool movie, and then we will answer all your questions. Thank you.
The labour market needs qualified people. No doubt your company is also looking for ways to boost human capital. For example, with a training program. But where do you start? Our online decision tool offers you appropriate solutions for learning technologies. The tool makes you think about your training in depth, and you will immediately receive a customized report with a detailed overview of the suggested technologies that would be beneficial for your training program. The tool is free and easy to use. Go to www.bhc20.eu and get started.
So, we're back, and now it's up to questions. Let's see on the screen if there are any questions. VR can both lower thresholds and be a barrier. Tineke?
Yes. They can lower thresholds, yes, because they show how reality is. They can be a barrier by, yes, people can get nausea in a VR. People can be afraid of VR. We had one trainee who actually didn't want to put on the hat in it. So yes, but in the end, if you, even with nausea, if you help them to use it properly, because you can adapt the lenses, then it actually works. And if you only do like a 20 minutes training, it also helps. So the barriers can be adjusted, but you have to keep them in mind, and you have to talk to people what is going to happen, what they will see, what is expected, the same as you do in a regular training. So that's what my colleagues said. Yeah. Pedagogy is very, very important, and it stays the same even if you use innovative learning technologies, not ILTs. It stays the same. You need to keep that in mind. You need to actually be a trainer who thinks about those things. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go off-road. No question from the screen, but you were talking about 20 minutes. How long did the VR experience last? So it was about 10, 20 minutes, Alan?
Well, some of the students would keep going back to it. They try something and they want to improve. One point I would make is not all VR involves putting a headset on either. You can have other versions of virtual reality. We had a kit for the welding which went alongside the VR headset. Okay. But I take your point. For some people, we have one or two that found it difficult to put the headsets on as well. But sometimes people would go back, they'd try something, and then they'd be determined to improve, so they'd go back and try again and try again. So it became almost addictive, because they wanted to keep improving. So some people spent hours on it, and would have spent longer if we had said, well, time to stop and let's go. So, so it was quite addictive.
Nice, thank you. Let's see on the screen if there are other questions. Do people feel alone during VR training, Alan?
Well, probably less so, actually, than if you're in a welding bay, because you have other people around you and sometimes people giving you encouragement, and the instructor's right there. So I think they probably, because actually welding, I'm talking particularly about welding, but welding can be quite a lonely task, because you can't have people near you. Whereas in a VR experience, you can. So it's probably, if anything, it's probably less lonely.
And while people were welding in the VR experience, were the other participants watching, or were they welding with a headset as well?
A bit of both. Sometimes people would be on their own and just trying, the ones that were a bit obsessive and were addicted and wanted it, they'd be in the corner trying to do but sometimes they'd be around and they'd be comparing each other's scores, and so it was a bit of a variety,
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. How do we reach small companies so they can also learn about learning technologies? Mathieu, do you have?
That's very complicated.
Yeah.
In particular, in the period of COVID. For that, we were not helped by the COVID, but that's. I think it was difficult for everybody, but no, that's difficult. Yeah. In small companies, you don't have mentors or trainers dedicated to mentor and train. So we need to find some people who have time. Yeah. We need to have some people motivated, and the SMEs manager has always split it. It's a schizophrenic work. You have to manage with the daily life of the company, with the invoices to pay, the production to be finished on time, etc., etc. And on the other hand, you need to anticipate what's the next. You're in competition within Europe, but also with Asia, and so you need to anticipate. And when we are speaking about the impact of ILTs for the innovative learning technologies, for the training process of the young people, they agree. Yeah. Theoretically, they agree. But finding time to implement these technologies, to experiment them with them, because without them we can produce everything, but it won't be adapted. It's very difficult. It's a real challenge. I think we finished to succeed to reach this challenge during the project, but it took time. I don't remember how many companies my colleagues from CETIM and MEF tried to reach during the preparation phase, but I think at least 20 or 25 companies, maybe Philippe and Véronique could complete, and at the end we found 3 companies really involved in the process, and another one as observer. But it's difficult.
Okay, but I can imagine that smaller companies see VR and simulations and they see, we don't have budgets to create something like that. But you were talking about a decision tool. I guess there are other learning technologies that might be fascinating.
There are other learning technologies that are fascinated. For VDAB, we choose VR to develop, and it's on the same machinery they use in food industry. So companies actually can use our program we developed if they want. That's one. 2, we go to a lot of companies together with Siri's project partner because they have a sort of toolkit where they can show all sorts of technologies, which is very valuable. They can also give information on where to get it, how to get it. And actually, as you said, the decision tool also shows other possibilities. An e-learning can be a perfect possibility. There are some companies who have developed gamification who is available for everybody. You just have to buy a registration and that's it. So there are a lot of possibilities, only you have to know how to find them, and that's our work, what we do and still are doing to this day, is go to companies, explain for their company what they can use, how it goes. And the decision tool is also always something we take with us. And that's why the question of the budget actually and the time of developing is in the decision tool.
And that is why such projects and support are so useful, because we could take the risk that individual SMEs never would have taken. Innovation is a challenge, a chance, etc., blah, 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 but it's also a risk for a small company. So with public money, with the Interreg money, we had the chance to test and to take the risk on behalf of the potential users and to show, to prove that it could work.
So I mentioned that we had a couple of demonstration sessions for companies in the evenings, and they went for the companies that turned up. They were very engaged, and they quite enjoyed seeing the different technologies. I think the next step we're looking at, I know that the University of Greenwich are looking at having a permanent base, which has these new learning technologies that companies can come in and have a look at in their own time. And so I think that's something we're considering developing. And the third thing I've mentioned is that we have, a lot of this kit is quite portable. So it would be possible in future to take it out to companies. I mean, even some of for instance, the VR welding kits, you can take out to companies and they could try them with their staff or with instructors. And the other thing is that, like all technologies, they're becoming less expensive. I mean, it's like the VR headsets now. When they first came out, they were I don't know, £1,000 or something, and now you can pick them up for less than 100. So it's all technology as it reaches a sort of critical mass reduces in price. So I think that the cost of the technology will decrease over time as it becomes more prevalent. So so that's that's a good thing for the SMEs for the future.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any other questions. What will happen after your project? Can we still reach you? So this is not the end of BHC 21, but it's the beginning of something new.
Yes.
Yes?
Correct. Well, it's the beginning of something new. It's just the consistency of what we do. We still go to companies, even in VDAB. I go in different groups from colleagues all over Flanders to explain what we did, the experience we had. We now have an innovation manager in VDAB who is also involved. They wanted to develop a decision tool in VDAB for us to how to choose a technology when you want to implement them. Well, I gave them the decision tool we made so they can change on it. So the work is not over. We have these experiences and it's up to us to share them. And hopefully we can continue with something new to see the lessons they learned on the audio voice. Is it something we can use? The VR welding is something VDAB already uses. So we can still exchange.
So duly noted, they are available 24/7 for all your questions. Is there time for a final question or not? Do we have maybe a question in the audience? Oh, we get the signal that we need to wrap up. From my side, thank you very much for joining us this wonderful morning in Lille, France. Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you, Tineke. Thank you, Mathieu. Stay well, enjoy the rest of your day, and see you for BHC 22. Goodbye. Ciao.